be? But me, your man, Louis T. Welcome to my continued coverage of the 2020 NFL Scouting Combine here on the Louis T. Network. Day number 3 featured the defensive linemen, and they separated them into interior defensive linemen and defensive ends, and the linebacker position. I must say, I was thoroughly impressed with what was put on the field today. I was not expecting a ton out of the linebacker group. As a matter of fact, it was funny because Daniel Jeremiah had said that this wasn't all that deep of a group. And then Mike Mayock, our guy, Michael Mayock, was on the program yesterday. And he said a lot of people are sleeping on this linebacker group. A lot of people are knocking this group. I'm telling you, it's a much better group than people are giving them credit for. And he said it twice. And so I always say, hey, say it twice if you really mean it. All right? Say it twice so I know you mean it. And he said it twice so I know he meant it. And today, they backed up what Mike Mayock said on the program yesterday, which is this is a better linebacker draft class than we have given them credit for, at least athletically. You know, you got to go back and watch the tape. And with some of these guys, there's some issues off the field. A guy that I thought had a great day, but there's some issues off the field. You know what I mean? There's some guys with not a ton of production. All right. But you go back, you watch. This is the thing. You can teach a guy how to drop into coverage. You can teach a guy, you know, how to use his inside arm to keep an offensive lineman or a tight end at bay and keep his outside arm free so he can make a tackle. I mean, you can teach guys how to be technically sound. What you can't teach is athleticism. Either you have it or you don't. Either you run a 4.53 or you don't. You can't teach a guy how to do that. And so if you give me a guy that's 6'2", 235 that can run a 4.53 and he doesn't have a ton of production, doesn't have a ton of great tape, but he's an athletically gifted guy and he can move and he's comfortable out in space, I'll figure out a way to get it to work, okay? If I've got the right coaches and I'm confident in their ability to get guys coached up, we'll take it from here, all right? Let me get that slab of clay. So I remember 2 years ago watching the combine. It might have even been last year, too. Wasn't a bunch of guys that were moving at the linebacker position was really bad last year. And there are only a select few last year. We remember there was the 2 Devons, and then there was a huge drop-off, and then there were a couple of other guys sprinkled in, but it wasn't a deep class last year. And I remember 2 years ago, wow, was that class slow or what? I remember someone was there and they were saying, man, this is a slow group. And same thing for the corners. I remember Deion saying, man, these guys cannot run. And so I think it's going to be different tomorrow. I think Deion's not going to be saying that tomorrow about the guys that we're going to see at the combine tomorrow. And these guys today blew me away in terms of their athleticism. And then when you took them onto the field, I was quite impressed with how it translated from straight line speed to being able to stop, change directions, and go the opposite way. Really, really, really impressed with what I saw today. Gets me excited to go watch the tape now because I had only done about a handful of these backers. So I'm not going to sit here and act as if I was familiar with most of these guys. It was a bunch of backers at the combine this year. Normally, they shortchange the backers because there aren't many of them. There are a ton of backers this year invited to the combine. And I got a list of guys that I've walked away very impressed with. But before we get to the backers, we got to talk about the defensive line. And we came in saying that was going to be a deep group, and they did not disappoint and actually got some comic relief out of some of these guys, the way that they were performing out there. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But first and foremost, thank you for joining me tonight on the program. If you're out there, thank you once again for tuning in. Also, make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the Louis T Network if you're out there. Also, we will be getting into the comment section a little bit later on in the program. As if you want to have your comment read, make sure you use the hashtag LouisTLive to have your comment read on the air. Also, if you want to jump to the front of the line or you just want to donate to the brand and the movement, then you can super chat. Super chatting is the way to have your comment read pretty much immediately. So as we go through the different groups, if there is a super chat, I will knock out those super chats and then we'll get to the next group that performed in the combine in the order that they went on the afternoon. So with that being said, day number 3, the first group, for those of you keeping score at home, group number 7 of the combine was the first half of the defensive linemen, but more specifically the interior defensive linemen. And this was a group that featured some big names in here, some guys that I had high grades on and thought that they could do some really good things. Derek Brown obviously being one of them. Justin Madubuike is another guy that I really like out of Texas A&M, and he performed well. We'll get to him a little bit later on. Of a stud at the next level. 290 pounds, ran a 4.91 40 with a 1.70 10-second split. And remember, for these defensive linemen, for guys that are north of 280, 275, guys that are heavier, not so much the 40 time that you're looking for, although, it doesn't hurt if a guy runs a blazing 40, but more specifically, you really want to see the 10-second split, especially on defensive linemen, much like the offensive linemen. These guys aren't running 40 yards down the field very often. There will be instances where they'll have to do that, but more likely than not, what you want to see is the get off. All right, what does that 10-second split look like? And for a guy like Justin Blaylock, his 10-second split at 1.70 was phenomenal. And keep in mind, DJ did a great job, I thought, of giving us kind of a baseline number of what the elite guys in the league do. So when you start looking at the elite players in the NFL, what they were able to do at the combine, the average for those guys' 10-second split was 1.72, just to give you some framework. So a guy like Justin Blaylock, Ross Blacklock, Ross Blacklock running a 1.70 10-second split tells you that this guy can move. And I thought it translated to the on-the-field drills throughout the course of the day. 2.5 stars. Remember, I'm on a 3-star grading scale. So 1 being the lowest, 3 being the most. 2.5 stars for Ross Blacklock on the day out of TCU. He's a guy that I think is rising up draft boards. The man of the hour for the defensive line was Derek Brown, especially with no Javon Kinlaw, who did not participate at the combine. So it was really a one-man show in terms of the big name on this defensive line, and it was Derek Brown. And he didn't disappoint. 6'5", 326-pound defensive lineman out of Auburn. Ran a 5.11, but again, that's not the time you're looking for. The 1.78 10-second split is the time that you should be concerned with, and that's a really good time for a guy at 326 pounds. I thought he moved well throughout the course of the day and did nothing but check and confirm a bunch of boxes. 2.5 stars on the day for me from Derek Brown. Marlon Davidson out of Auburn, his teammate, that primarily lined up at defensive end at Auburn, but I think is going to at the next level ultimately kick inside. 6'3", 303 pounds. Unless he's going to be a 5-tech for someone, he's pretty intriguing because I think you could kick him inside and he could play a 3-tech. But some teams probably are going to look at this guy, and this is why he was working out with the interior defensive lineman, because I think most teams see him as a 3-tech. But you look at this guy, he could probably be a 5-tech too, at 303 pounds. Either way, 5.04 40, but a 1.79 10-second split. So Marlon Davidson did some good things out on the field. He was a 2-star guy for me at the combine in day number 3. Jordan Elliott out of Mizzou, 6'4", 302-pound defensive lineman, ran a 5.03 40 and a 1.71 10-second split. So that tells you that he was moving. That 10-second split was really good for him. And I thought he moved well throughout the course of the day. 2 stars for him on the evening. Neville Gallimore was a guy that really stood out for me throughout the course of this day. Daniel Jeremiah said, buckle your seatbelt. This guy's going to run. And that he did. As a 6'2", 304-pound defensive lineman out of Oklahoma. This guy ran a 4.79. I repeat, a 4.79 at 302 pounds and a 1.69 10-second split. So that's telling you right there that this guy has some get off and some explosiveness. And he's a guy that I'm anxious to go watch some tape on now because I hadn't watched Neville Gallimore. So I'm definitely looking forward to watching him, because if the juice matches up with these numbers, then he's going to be a fun player to watch. Sounds like DJ enjoyed watching him, so I think I will as well. 2.5 stars for Neville Gallimore on today. Devon Hamilton out of Ohio State, 6'4", 320-pound defensive tackle, 5'14", 40, 180, 10-second split. Thought he was solid throughout the course of the day, and 2 stars for him. Rashard Lawrence out of LSU, 6'2", 308-pound defensive tackle, 5'08", 40, 172, 10-second split. So the 10-second split was phenomenal for him. 2 stars on the day. But for me, what really mattered with him was the fact that he was just, I couldn't stop laughing at this guy. His actual form was horrible. I mean, his hands like this the whole time. Everything he did, he just looked like a mechanical robot. I mean, his form was horrendous, but whatever works, man. I'm not here to judge. I'm just telling you that his form was an atrocity, but I got a nice laugh out of it every time this guy ran. And there were several guys that were terrible in terms of their form. There was another guy that he was running in his head. I was like, man, he's giving himself a migraine with the way he's running. But, hey, whatever you got to do it. So Rashard Lawrence, 2 stars on the day outside of his ridiculous form. Justin Matabuke is a guy that I have been intrigued with throughout this process at Texas A&M. I remember him jumping off the screen at me, just watching Texas A&M in regular games and me saying, who in the hell is this guy and why do I keep seeing him? And so the fact that he came to the combine at 6'3", 293 and ran a 4.83 kind of confirms a lot of what I saw just watching him live. And so 173, 10-second split. I thought he did a really good job on the drills and tested on the field really well. 2.5 stars for Justin Matabuke. He's a guy that I'm intrigued by in this draft, and I see him as a second-round prospect right now. And I think he's a guy that is rising up draft boards, and I don't think he's going to get into the first round, but I think he's going to be one of those guys that comes off the board pretty quickly in the second round. Robert Windsor was a guy out of Penn State that I really didn't want to write him down. He was another guy with an awkward running style, 6'4", 290, 4.90, 40, and a 176 10-second split. Kind of forced me to write him down, but he wasn't all that impressive in the drills. He was kind of stiff. 2-star day for him. And then there were the 2 brothers from Nebraska. I didn't write them down because I didn't think they would test all that well. But the numbers kind of jumped out at me. I don't think I'm going to have to do a ton of work on these guys. However, they ran fast, man. And one had they were twin brothers from Nebraska. One had a 167 10-second split. The other had a 166. So, I mean, those guys were moving, man. But not a lot of production from either one of those defensive linemen. And as I mentioned before, no Javon Kinlaw. He would have been with this group here. So let's get to any of the comments. And I do have a super chat. And it's from my man, JP. Thank you for the super chat, JP. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for the super chat. JP says, kind of sucks that future Redskin Chase Young didn't do the combine drills, but I understand why. I'll definitely be watching his OSU pro day, though. I don't get upset when guys decide not to work out. It's a business. You got to do what's best for you. And we saw guys pull up lame with hamstrings and things of that nature. What you don't want to do is hurt something, aggravate something, and then come your pro day where it really matters. You're not able to work out, or you're nursing something and you still go out and try to gut it out, or you got to push your particular personal pro day back and not be able to work out with your teammates at your alma mater. So I don't fault guys for making business decisions. Like Justin Simmons, he pretty much wanted to put on a clinic on his ability to run, and then he shut it down after that. And I don't blame him. For me, I don't understand why these guys, if you run an impressive 40, like if you run a 40 and let's say your target number coming into the combine was a 4.55, and the first 40 you run is a 4.56, I'm not gonna run again. If that's an impressive time, if that's what you were aiming to do, I'm not running it again, because you run the risk of what you saw happen to Kenneth Murray and Patrick Queen. You run the risk of you pulling up lame with these hamstring injuries, and these quads, and it's not worth it. That's the one drill that is going to force you to strain and probably have something like that happen. And so if you knock it out the first time, I'm not looking to run it again. So I don't blame a guy like Chase Young for saying, nah, I'm good. I'm just going to wait till my pro day. And other guys did that. As I talked about Javon Kinlaw, there are a bunch of guys that just opted not to do it. Kaylavon Chesson, I bet you any amount of money, the reason he didn't work out here, and I don't know if he's dealing with an injury or not, but I bet you any amount of money, he wants to get his body into as best a shape as he can and learn how to operate with the weight that he's trying to put on. Because remember, that was one of the 10 things I was looking for at this combine was how heavy was he going to be? And how did he carry that weight? Well, I didn't get to see it. So now you're going to be kind of relying on the LSU Pro Day to find out how much did he weigh, how fast did he run, and how fast and well did he move. I'm not going to get to see it, though. And that's the frustrating part. You're going to have to rely on people that are there, and I would really prefer to see it with my own 2 eyes. And so that's the only thing that sucks when you don't get to see it at the combine is you don't get to see it with your own 2 eyes. But, as I told you before, if you want to know who's great, it's all in the tape. So it is what it is at the end of the day. So we move on, and we get to the second group of the day, group number 8 for those of you scoring at home. And this was, again, the defensive line, but now you're talking about more of the defensive ends in this particular group here. And so you started off with Bradley Anai out of Utah, and he caught my eye, 6'3", 257 pounds. It wasn't his 40. It was the 10-second split and his movement skills on the day. I thought he moved fantastically. And they had the little run in the arc drill where they put down the 2 hula hoops, and you got to pick up the towel, drop it on the other side, pick up the other towel, drop it. I thought he ran that flawlessly. And all the drills that they did for the defensive linemen, I love the new drills. I love the run in the arc drill. I've seen that one done before. The one that I hadn't seen, and I talked about this on the show that I did, the Combine show, is the drill where they have them slap the bag, spin, then rip, and then dip around that last bag, turning that corner, simulating turning the corner, and then getting to the quarterback. I love that drill. I think that is a fantastic drill. Kind of shows you who's nimble and agile enough and who has a good center of gravity, who's comfortable putting together moves, and who can dip that corner. And Bradley Anai was one of those guys that I thought did well in that particular drill. Raekwon Davis, 2.5 stars for Bradley Anai on the day. Raekwon Davis out of Alabama, 6'6", 311 pounds, ran a 5'1", 340, a 1.78, 10-second split. And for this particular group, if you're talking defensive end and edge rushers, 165 is the target number for the 10-second split. So Bradley Anai is 168. That's a really good time there. Raekwon Davis, to me, he's just such a big guy. I remember watching him 2 years ago in the national championship game and saying to myself, man, this guy is a beast. And it'll be interesting to see where he lands, how they decide to use him. Will they use him as a 5-tech on the outside? Will they use him inside like a Calais Campbell type? He's a massive man, though, at 6'6", 311. And so I like Raekwon Davis a lot. Had a 2-star day for me. AJ Epineza was a guy that came in highly touted, going to probably be a top 20 pick in this draft. 6'5", 275 out of Iowa. I look at him, and I'm not going to lie to you, like he's got Baltimore Raven written all over him. Like I look at this guy, and this is the kind of player the Ravens take. And 3 years from now, he's got 12.5 sacks, and the Ravens are reaping the benefits of a guy that maybe slipped down the draft board a bit. And it wouldn't shock me if this guy kind of gets bumped back a little bit because of the numbers. But if you watch him on tape, it's all about technique, and I'm more of a technique guy. I love the explosion. I love the guy that has that ridiculous first 2 steps. I love it. But you know what I like even more than that is the guy that knows how to use his hands. And AJ Epineza knows how to use his hands. He's so technically and fundamentally sound. It's the same thing I told you about the Bozas. Remember, Boza ran like a 4.84 or something like that. Like he wasn't blazing fast last year. I told you, I don't care about that because he knows how to use his hands. And you saw what he did last year. I feel the same way about AJ Epineza. I'm telling you right now, this guy can play ball. 6'5", 275, ran a 5.05 and a 1.78 10-second split. Those aren't going to knock your socks off. But what he did do in the field drills was very impressive. The way I look at him, in that drill that I talked about that I love, the one where they rip, spin, rip again, and then come around the bag, I thought he was outstanding in that drill. AJ Epineza, for me, is a guy that I really like. He had a 3-star day for me. And forget about the 40 time with AJ Epineza. This is a guy that can play ball, man. I really like him a lot. Jonathan Grenard out of Florida, 6'3", 263-pound defensive end / outside linebacker, 4.8, 840, 171 10-second split. I just was impressed with him throughout the day. And I watched a ton of Florida football, watch a ton of SEC football every year, watch a ton of Big Ten football every year. And he's a guy that I just saw, and he just jumps off the screen at you. And he was their best pass rusher at Florida, and he looked the part on the field today. I thought he moved really well. I thought he even moved well in the conversion drills where he kind of had to stand up, shuffle your feet, drive and come after the football. Just thought he had a really sound day. 2.5 stars for Jonathan Grenard on the day. Thought he was really good. Yetur Gross Matos out of Penn State, no 40 time for him, so he gets an incomplete grade for me. 6'5", 266. He did do the on-the-field drills. He was fine. Didn't knock my socks off. Looked a little stiff. He's a big guy, though, at 6'5", 266, but no 40. Go figure. You probably know why he didn't do a 40, but that's nor here nor there. The tape will tell the story on him. James Lynch is the guy I like out of Baylor a lot. 6'4", 289, 5'01", 40, 173, 10-second split. He reminds me a lot of the Boston College defensive lineman Zach Allen that came out last year, a guy that I really liked. James Lynch is very similar in body type and ability, and I just think he's going to be one of those guys that has a chance to really do some damage in this league. As a 5-tech. I see him as a 5-tech. I don't know if he's a base 4-3 defensive end, and maybe he puts on a few more pounds and ends up being an interior defensive lineman, a 3-tech. Either way, I thought he was a 2-star guy on the day, and I like James Lynch a lot. Alex Highsmith out of Charlotte was a guy that I had no intentions of writing down, had no idea who he was, and didn't really care to learn who he was. And he forced me to know who he was and to care who he was. Out of Charlotte, the 6'3", 248-pound defensive end, ran a 4.70 and a 1.68 10-second split, which immediately got my attention. I still didn't write his name down until I got to the on-the-field drills, and he just kept doing everything really well. And I finally had to break down and write his name down, and he got 2.5 stars from me. So that's a guy that I'm probably going to have to go back and watch because he's probably going to get drafted. Alton Robinson out of Syracuse, another guy that I had no intentions of writing down. A 6'3", 264-pound defensive end out of Syracuse, 4.69 40, 1.65 10-second split. Again, those were the numbers that caught my attention. I still didn't want to write him down. And then he got to the on-the-field drills, and it translated, and I said, okay, you got me, hands up. 2-star day for him. But again, another guy that I'm now aware, and he's now on my radar. James Smith Williams out of NC State, 6'4", 265, 4.61 40, 1.63 10-second split. So again, another guy had no intentions of writing down. They had a story about him, how he had a armband on, and they talked about him doing his vert jump and then coming down and grazing his elbow on the screw, and he was bleeding. And so there was a little backstory to that. Not a ton of production at NC State when you listen to DJ and everyone talk about him. Not a ton of production. But again, as I talked about at the top of the show, if you can run, I can do something with that, especially at this position. It's not like corner where either you can or you can't. It's tough to teach a guy a lot of things at the cornerback position. At linebacker or at defensive end, I can teach you some things if you have the athleticism. And he's one of those guys that he has some athleticism. And I'm not saying he's Danielle Hunter. That's not what I'm saying. But remember, Danielle Hunter was so raw coming out of LSU. He really didn't have all of the skills. He really didn't have the fundamentals. But you know what he did have? A ridiculous body and a ridiculous set of skills. Athletically gifted, ridiculous length and reach, and things you just couldn't teach. They said, hey, give me that slab of clay and I'll mold it up. And now he's one of the best pass rushers in the game. I'm not saying that's what James Smith-Williams is going to turn into, but when you have those kinds of numbers at that size, 6'4", 265, running a 4.61 with a 1.63 10-second split, keep in mind the best pass rushers in the league average a 1.65 10-second split, you have a chance. Someone is going to be intrigued. And he may be a 6th or a 7th round pick, or he may go undrafted, but he may end up latching on somewhere and having a chance because of that athleticism. Kenny Willekes out of Michigan State was a guy that I watched a ton of throughout his collegiate career, always making plays. And I will always would say to myself, man, he's great at beating the hell out of tight ends. And it's funny that DJ said that because that was one of the observations that I made watching him. 6'3", 264, 4.88 40, 169 40, which I actually thought his 10-second split was a lot better than I thought it was going to be because you don't really see a ton of explosion from Kenny Willekes. You see a guy that is really crafty, knows how to use his hands, knows how to set up tackles and tight ends. And so I actually was impressed with this 10-second split, but he looked a little tight in a lot of the drills. But he was 2-star for me on the day. Jabari Zuniga out of Florida, 6'3", 264-pound defensive end, 4.64 40 and a 1.61 10-second split shows you a little bit of the explosion that he has. 2 stars on the day for me. He's another guy that I really want to check out. And here's a guy that I had no intentions of writing down, but when you just start looking at the history of what they produce and how they continue to churn out quality football players, I had no choice but to write him down. Derek Tuska out of North Dakota State, 6'4", 251-pound defensive end, 4.79 40, 1.70 10-second split. I just thought he moved really well all day long, did Derek Tuska. And I thought about the Los Angeles Chargers, North Dakota State player that they drafted about 3-4 years ago, and I thought to myself, man, this guy reminds me of that, and so wrote him down, and I probably will take a look at him because he was impressive on the day. No Caleb Von Chassen, as I mentioned already, was a little disappointed by not seeing him at all. Was really looking forward to seeing him. And then a guy that I didn't write down initially, but I went back because he just had such a stellar day, and he was with the first group of defensive linemen, was Malcolm Roach. I wrote down Malcolm Roach, 6'2", 297-pound defensive lineman out of Texas, 4'8", 440, a 1.71 10-second split. Malcolm Roach was flying, man. At 297 pounds, you're essentially talking 300 pounds, ran a sub-4 940, and the way he was moving throughout the drills, man, dude was impressive. Super, super impressive. 2.5 stars for him on the day. I just thought I'd go back and mention him. So let's see if we have any super chats. And I got one here. This one from Barrett Downing. Thank you, Barrett Downing, for the super chat. Greatly appreciated. Can't thank you enough for all that you have done over this past week and all that you have done for the brand with your donations. Thank you for your super chat. Barrett writes, "What's up, my brother? Respect. Great job. Thank you so much, Barrett, for your contribution." We'll get to more of your comments a little bit later on. I'm going to get through this last group, and it's a long group here at the linebacker position. This was an impressive group, man. Third group, final group of the day, group number 9 for those of you scoring at home overall. This group was ultra impressive, and looking at this group, I had only watched tape on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these guys. So, and I really didn't think there were going to be that many more that would stand out. And I walked away saying to myself, man, I got some work to do because this is an impressive group of linebackers athletically, and they tested really well. And so I got some work to do. But I love it. So you start with Zach Bond out of Wisconsin. And this was one of the guys that I had watched. One of the guys that's in my top 5 at the linebacker position. 6'2", 238, ran a 4.65, which is a great time for him. I think Wisconsin linebacker, and usually the best you're gonna get is like a Joe Schobert. I think he ran like a 4.65 somewhere in that neighborhood. Generally, I think Wisconsin linebacker, I'm thinking 4.75, something in that neighborhood, and then he runs a 4.65. And then it translated to the on-the-field drills. He moved really well throughout the course of the day. He's a guy that catches it really well. 4.65. I thought Zach Bond had a really good day. 2.5 stars for him. He's a guy that's going to hear his name, I believe, in the second round of this draft. Joe Bacci out of Michigan State, 6'1", 230, 4.67, 40. So again, another Big Ten linebacker, defying the odds and running really fast. 2-star day for him. I thought he looked good out there. And this is a guy that's a middle linebacker that was running like a weak side linebacker. So these guys really performed well. One of the guys that I was aware of going into the combine was Jordan Brooks out of Texas Tech. He's another guy that was in my top 5 at the linebacker position. 6 feet, 240, 4.55, 40 for him. Incomplete grade, though, because he didn't do any of the on-the-field drills. He just ran the 40. Don't know if anything happened to him or if he just decided, I'm just going to run the 40s, do my on-the-field work at my pro day. But whatever the case may be, Jordan Brooks had a really good time for his 40, and that matches up what I saw on tape from him. He's a sideline-to-sideline guy. Sean Bradley out of Temple, to me, was my standout of the day at the linebacker position. Every day I've got one guy that I walk away from the day saying, I like this guy a lot, and I'm definitely going to watch him. If you go back to day number 1, I think that guy for me was Josiah DeGuara at the tight end position. If you go to day number 2, I had a bevy of guys. Nick Harris, the center out of Washington, stood out to me with his ability. There were several other guys that I thought were phenomenal. But I think the guy that stood out to me the most was Nick Harris yesterday. And then today, that guy for me is Sean Bradley out of Temple. The 6'1", 235-pound linebacker, ran a 4.5, 140, and he just tore up the on-the-field drills. I mean, he was so fluid in his change of direction. He caught the football. He just looked like a guy that was naturally born to be out in space. And the 4.51 was the icing on the cake and the cherry on top. He was outstanding. 3-star day for him. I'm convinced that I'm going to turn on the tape and I'm going to be really, really enamored with Sean Bradley after watching him at the combine. Carter Coughlin, 6'3", 236-pound linebacker out of Minnesota. Remember, they had a linebacker last year that could run that was drafted by the Jets that I really liked. And so Minnesota churning out another backer, this time in Carter Coughlin, and 4.5, 840, man, at 6'3", 236. That's pretty damn impressive. Again, these backers this year can run, and Carter Coughlin, one of those guys, 2-star day for him. He's now officially on my radar. Another guy that I thought was a standout on the day was Willie Gay Jr. out of Mississippi State. Here's a guy, 6'1", 243, ran a 4.46 40. He was outstanding. And I looked at this guy and I said, man, wow, this guy's impressive. Why haven't I heard more about him? Well, it's because the guy missed 8 games due to suspension in 2019. So there's some work to be done there. I got to figure out what the hell's going on there. All it said was for, team infraction. So he had some issues coloring inside the lines. And that's something that teams are going to have to dig into because the talent is here. But we've seen talent not always trump, the ability to stay out of trouble. One of the guys that I always think about when you think about the talent but not being able to stay out of trouble was the wide receiver out of Florida that the Browns drafted. Guy super talented, just couldn't stay out of his own way. So got to find out what the hell's going on with Willie Gay Jr. because this was an impressive performance. 2.5 stars for Willie Gay Jr. on the day. He was exceptional in all of the drills with his movement skills and the 4.46. Again, exclamation point on what kind of an athlete this guy is. Malik Harrison, Ohio State linebacker, 6'3", 247. Looks just like the typical Ohio State linebacker. Big, thick, physical, 4.66 40 is a really good time for him. Thought he was solid in the drills. 2-star day for him. And it's what I've come to expect from these guys at Ohio State. Khaleke Hudson out of Michigan, 5'11", 224, 4.57. And he is in that Devin Bush mode. That undersized backer. It seems like this is what Michigan is recruiting these days. That 5'11" back. Remember, Bush was 5'11". Devin Bush was around 230 pounds. In that 225 to 232 neighborhood. And Devin Bush ran a Bush ran a 4.41 or something like that. Ridiculous last year. Not that fast for Khaleke Hudson, but 4.57, nothing to scoff at. Again, sometimes we get caught up in the guys that are outliers that run really fast. For a linebacker, the speed you're looking for is somewhere in the 4.6s. Anything south of 4.65, you should feel really damn good about that. If you've got a backer that can run anywhere sub 4.65, feel good about that. All right, feel damn good about that. Keep in mind, and he said he had a quad injury when he ran. Darius Leonard ran a 4.70 at the combine. Now he's faster than that. But that just gives you an idea. Like, he's one of the best we got in the business right now. And he's probably like a 4.63 guy or so, 4.6 flat, whatever, somewhere in there. Like, he's not blazing fast, but he plays fast on Sundays. That's what you're looking for. And these guys, they showed out, man. Kenneth Murray was a guy I was really looking forward to seeing on the field. I knew he was going to run fast in a straight line. When you watch the tape, sideline to sideline speed, it was evident. He's one of the top backers in this draft. 6'2", 241. Love the size, too, because most of the times when you get guys that run the way that he does, they're probably 233, 232, you know what I mean? But this guy's 241 pounds, well put together, team captain, all of the things you want to hear. He ran a 4.52. But obviously, his day was cut short with an injury, pulled up lame on his second 40. And this is why I say, if I run a really good first time, like Murray probably came in saying anything south of 4.55 and I'm good with it. And he runs a 4.52 his first time. Yeah, you'd like to crack, sub 4.5. That's great. But guess what? The difference between a 4.49 and a 4.52 isn't all that big. And guess what? 4.52 is plenty fast, and I know you can run. So if you run a 4.5 flat or 4.48 the next time, we're going to go, sub 4.5, that's great. But guess what? Who gives a shit? It's not worth you pulling up lame with a hammy or a quad. Like, if you blaze it the first time, you don't need to see it again. You know I can run fast. And the tape tells you that as well. I just confirmed it for you. I don't need to do it again. So I was disappointed that he wasn't able to perform on the field, and he came up lame, so he got an incomplete grade. But the fact of the matter is, the biggest takeaway is that he's fast. He checked that box. We can move on. Shaq Quarterman is the guy. I knew he wasn't going to run fast. Watched a bunch of Florida or Miami games. Watched a bunch of Shaq Quarterman. Already know what he's all about. He's a thumper. He's a physical guy, not going to run fast, and he didn't. 6 feet, 234, 4.75 40. Kind of expected that. Two stars on the day. I got what I was expecting out of Shaq Quarterman. Patrick Queen is a guy that has burst on the scene the second half of the LSU season. A lot of people didn't even know who this guy was 3 months ago. And all of a sudden, this guy is making plays. He's running all over the place. I remember saying after the Clemson national championship game that this guy was a first-round pick. And I had people scoffing at me like, what are you talking about? This guy didn't even start for most of the year. And I'm like, you must not be watching Patrick Queen, because the guy that I watched in that national championship game tore it up. And then he came to the combine 6 feet, 229, and ran a 4.51. He could have stopped right there. Instead, he decided to run again. And just like I said with Patrick Murray, just like I said with Kenneth Murray, I didn't need to see it again. You're fast. We got it. That's all I wanted to see was you do it one time and then be done with it. And so he came up lame on his second run, and so he got an incomplete grade. And I really wanted to see him move because I actually thought he was going to be the star of the show with Isaiah Simmons saying I was done after the first 40. I thought Patrick Queen then became the guy that was not going to be the queen, but rather the king of this group, and instead we didn't get to see it. Speaking of Isaiah Simmons, man, oh man, I talked about wanting to see his change of direction. Well, I didn't get to see it, which is what I knew he was going to run fast. This 4.39, while it's ultra impressive, I'm not surprised. I'm not. I told you, you could see it on tape. This guy can fly. So I knew he was going to run fast. I didn't know he was going to run 4.39 fast, though. I'm not going to sit here and act like I knew. I had him penciled in at 4.45, somewhere in there. For him to run a 4.39, yikes, okay? Stupid fast. But, and remember, this is at 6'4", 238. The things you can do with this guy are limitless. If I'm the Giants at 4, I'm sorry. I know we got to protect Daniel Jones. I know. And there are some elite guys up there. Mekhi Becton sounds really good at number 4. And look, if this draft is as deep as you say it is at tackle, find you another guy in the second round. What you can't find is another one of these. These don't grow on trees. All right. And there's so many people talking about, I don't know where, Isaiah Simmons is going to go. Because remember, I talk about this every year. Everybody can't go in the top 5. Everybody can't go in the top 10. There are going to be some guys that slip. That's how Marshawn Lattimore ended up in New Orleans with the Saints. He had no business getting out of the top 10. But every year, because the quarterbacks get pushed up and the offensive linemen get pushed up, you see guys that have no business outside of the top 10 ending up outside the top 10. He's not going to end up outside the top 10, but he shouldn't end up getting to the Panthers at 7 or getting to the Cardinals at 8. But he might. People might overthink this pick. If I'm the Giants at 4, I just got rid of my linebacker to free up cap space. All right? I just moved on from my backer to pick up Alec Ogletree, to pick up cap space. This is the guy right here. You need playmakers on defense. You don't have enough of them. You don't have one on the defensive line. You don't have one at the linebacker position. You don't have one in the secondary. This is the guy at 4. I don't want to see his ass in the division. Personally, take your ass to Carolina, take his ass to Arizona, drop him off somewhere outside of the NFC East. Thank you very much. But if I'm the Giants, hell, if I'm the Lions at 3, this is the guy. This is the guy. But, other teams have other needs. I get it. This is the guy. This is the guy. 6'4", 238, 4.39, 40. Can play just about every position on the field. This is the guy. He can blitz. He can play linebacker. He can play safety. You can drop him over the slot. This is the guy. So, look, I don't want him over Chase Young. That's not what I'm saying, okay? After Chase Young, defensively, this is the guy, okay? This is the guy. So, anyway, Davion Taylor out of Colorado, 6 feet, 228, another guy that could just flat out fly. 4.5 40. All right, 4.5 flat. 2-star day for him. I thought he moved around really well, and I haven't watched him, so I can't say that this is confirmed from the tape, but I can tell you this. Daniel Jeremiah said, you see it, and Daniel Jeremiah said before he ran, he's going to run fast. So that tells me he plays fast, so I can't wait to watch him. Logan Wilson, or 2-star day, if I didn't already mention that. Logan Wilson out of Wyoming, 6'2", 241-pound linebacker, ran a 4.63. That's a good time for this guy at 241 pounds. And Daniel Jeremiah said, look, this is a guy that I got a second-round grade on, so I got some work to do on him as well. He got an incomplete grade from me because after the 40, I just didn't see him. Now, that's not to say he wasn't doing the on-the-field drills. It's just that maybe they went to commercial break every time his turn was coming up, but I just didn't see him after. And this was a deep group, as I mentioned. So it was easy for them to cut away to Darius Leonard and Willie McGinnis. It's nothing for them to cut away to those two talking about something, and we miss a guy like Logan Wilson, or they go to commercial break and we miss Logan Wilson. It's nothing for them to do that. So I don't know if he did the on the field drills. I can just tell you I didn't see any of them, so he got an incomplete grade from me. Anthony Jennings out of Alabama, 6'2", 256-pound edge rusher / linebacker. Terrell Lewis was more of the edge rusher. He didn't run a 40, incomplete grade. Same thing for his running mate at Alabama, Terrell Lewis, 6'5", 262. He didn't run a 40 either. Usually that's a tall tale sign. They knew they weren't going to run very fast, and they're still working on their 40s. So instead of doing it at the combine and not running a good time, they're going to do it at their pro day. To me, honestly, either you like these guys or you don't. Their 40 times probably not going to make that big of a difference at the end of the day. And then no Curtis Weaver. And again, I don't know why. I don't know if he's nursing an injury. Remember, he was one of the guys that I wanted to see at the combine. And for him to not do anything, a little bit of a red flag for me. Again, I don't know. I didn't do any homework as to whether he was healthy or not. But I just assumed he was going to show up. And I wanted to see, because he's one of those tweener guys that he looks like first of all, he was a defensive end, but he was in that no man's land, like 265 pounds or so. But you're like, you're not explosive. What are you? I don't know if you're a base 4-3 defensive end or you're a standout outside backer, but you're not explosive enough to do that. Like, he was kind of one of those tweener guys. So, and there was a question of whether he had some bad weight on him. So maybe he just wanted to get into shape and he'll perform at the Boise Pro Day, whatever the case may be. He wasn't at the combine. So that is it. So anyway, let's go to the comment section. That was day number 3 of the combine. Let's get some of your comments. Andrew Kim says, I don't care what AJ Epineza tested, and with Kaylavon Chasen not testing, I want one of them to fall to the Ravens. AJ Epineza might fall to the Ravens. It just seems like one of those drafts. This seems like one of these drafts where a guy that doesn't have any business falling to, 28 or, 27 is going to fall because of all the talent and all the quarterbacks and all. Because you could see 4 quarterbacks go in the top 15, top 20 picks. And that's going to push some good football players back. You could see 4 offensive linemen go in the first 20 picks. That's going to push some more good football players back. You already know Chase Young is going. You already know Isaiah Simmons is going. You already know Derek Brown is going to go. Javon Kinlaw is going to go. Some of these guys are going to get pushed back. All right? Everyone can't go in the top 10. Everybody can't go in the top 20. And some of these guys are going to fall in. AJ Epineza might be one of those guys. We'll see. Travis D says, what up, fam? Chase Young or go home? Absolutely. Mr. Yirdi Ho says, who can we get on the Skins? LOL. It's Chase Young, brother. I mean, after that, I told you Sean Bradley out of Temple is a guy that I'm enamored with at the linebacker position. I don't know how long he's going to last after running the way that he did and testing the way that he did today. I don't know what the tape looks like. So, again, that's going to tell the story. But the Redskins could use some inside backer help because, again, I'm not counting on Reuben Foster just yet. And you need to get some speed, man. So we'll see what happens. Andrew Kim says, why do I feel like all the teams that need linebackers, both Queen and Murray, aren't falling to the Ravens? No, those 2 guys aren't going to fall to you. They'll be long gone. In a league where now the speed of the linebacker position has never been more apparent and more necessary than it is now, you got to have it. I remember there was a time where you didn't see guys go that high in the draft at the linebacker position. You had to be a special, rare breed. Now, if you can run really fast and you got the tape to match, man, it's a league now where there are mismatches trying to be created everywhere on the field, at the tight end position, at the running back position. the Christian McCaffreys of the world, the Travis Kelce's of the world, the George Kittles of the world. You need guys that can cover these guys. Alvin Kamara, these are the new wave of the NFL. And if you don't have linebackers that can run, that can cover these guys, you're in trouble. And so everyone's looking for their guy to match up with these mismatch nightmares. So I don't think either one of those guys are going to fall to the Ravens. I don't. Larry G's the best says, when Queen and Murray hurt themselves, I was like, yikes. But I do have a question. Do you see these guys falling down into the second round, early third? Absolutely not. Neither one of these guys are getting out of the first round. Either one of them getting out of the first round. Now, I can tell you this with and I just talked about falling players because of being pushed back because of all the quarterbacks and offensive linemen and things of that nature. You may see one of those two linebackers fall down the board, but I don't think you'll see both of them. Neither one of them are getting out of the first round, though. I can tell you that much. JP says Epineza and Simmons did well, but Epineza's 40 time could have been better. It could have been, but at the end of the day, he's technically sound, and that's what I care about the most. Deshaun Drakeford says, would you prefer to draft Chase Young second overall? Yes, Chase Young is the pick at number 2. RG3 hashtag says, what time do you think Chase would have ran if he was running a 40? I've heard that he would have run a sub 4.6. So, I don't think he was going to run like a 4.48 or anything crazy like that. But, at his size, anything sub 4.6 would have been off the charts. I think Clowney ran like a 4.65 or something like that. So I think he was going to run faster than Clowney. But we'll see. I mean, at this point, I don't really care. Honestly, I don't. All of that stuff, like Montez Sweat running that 4.4, when are you going to actually get to see him use a 4.440? Like, what I care about is your skills. How do you get, and that's why I wasn't that high on Montez Sweat last year, was because Montez Sweat was raw. He didn't have any pass rush moves. His thing was unblocked. All right, now you see my 4.4 speed. Or, I'm going to beat a guy quick off the ball with speed, and he's just not ready. You know what I mean? He had no skill. And so I think if Montez Sweat isn't coached up, he'll cap out at about 8.5, 9 sacks a season. Like, he won't be a 10, 12, 14. He won't ever be an elite pass rusher if he doesn't learn how to use his hands and be a little bit more dynamic in that regard. But you got to be able to use your hands and your feet, got to sync up, and got to be technically sound. Rob the Goat says, would you mind Simmons over Chase Young? I would mind that, yes. You got to get the pass rusher. Simmons is a freak, and you can do a lot of things with him, but at the end of the day, somebody's got to go get the quarterback. That's what's more important to me. Disrupting the quarterback is more important than having guys run with George Kittle or Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. If you get to the quarterback, he can't get it to one of those guys. I'd much rather take the guy that can just destroy the whole play before I take the guy that can have to try to deal with those guys after the play has already taken place and he's gotten the football off. Mr. Yirdy-Ho says, I liked the linebacker from Temple. I didn't get his name, but he did really well. And I told you already that was Sean Bradley. He was outstanding. And that was the guy that stuck out for me as well. So we were on the same page, Mr. Yirdy-Ho. JP says, any chance the Skins grab a backer in the later rounds, like the Nebraska kid, Muhammad Berry, for example? I think if the Redskins are smart, they'd grab a backer in this draft. But you got to see what needs have been taken care of and what players are available. Because, again, a lot of times you get to the back end of the draft, you take need and you take best player available. And so we'll see what happens. JP says, does Simmons make it to the Jags at 9, or will he be a Giant at 4? I think the Giants would really be doing themselves a disservice if they didn't get Simmons at 4, because my thought process is if you feel really good about this offensive tackle group, they'll be around in the second round. Like, I don't think he's going to make it to the second round, but who's to say that Austin Jackson isn't around in the second round out of USC? I think he's going to go late first. But if he gets out of the first round, he's there for you in the second round. You're good. What about Josh Jones out of Houston? I mean, he's definitely going to be there for you in the second round. Like, I know Mekhi Becton is next level. I get it. And you want to protect your investment from last year in Daniel Jones. And I understand that as well. But these kinds of guys don't come along very often in Isaiah Simmons. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. So, JP says, how high does AJ Epineza get selected? I mocked him to the Raiders at 19 in my mock draft. He also could end up a Lion if they get the 18th pick in the trade down scenario with Miami. He's interesting because, again, it's hard to say what's going to happen. And that's why I don't put out a mock until after free agency, because teams' needs could change like that at the drop of a hat because of what they get in free agency. And, you got a team mocked to take a corner, and then they go out and they get, James Bradbury, or they go out in free agency and they get Byron Jones, and all of a sudden they don't need corner help anymore. They don't need to draft the first round corner, so it changes your entire mock. A guy like AJ Epineza, for me, is probably going to end up, I've got him right now somewhere in that 15 to 20 range, but as I mentioned, some guys are going to get pushed back in this draft. I think realistically, you're going to see 4 quarterbacks go in the top 15 picks of this draft. I think Jordan Love has moved himself up. You're going to see Tua and Joe Burrow go, I think, in the first 3 picks, because I think someone's going to trade up with Detroit to get to number 3. And then I think you're going to see Jordan Love go relatively high. I think you're going to also see Justin Herbert go high. I think you're going to see 4 quarterbacks go in the top 15 picks. That's what we do with quarterbacks. They get pushed up. And again, you let's just say 4 quarterbacks go in the top 15. And then you got to add in Isaiah Simmons. You got to add in Chase Young. You got to add in Jeffrey Okudah. You got to add in Javon Kinlaw. You got to add in Derek Brown. That's 9 guys right there. You got to add in Mekhi Becton. That's 10. You got to add in the Iowa, Tristan Wirfs. That's 11 guys. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You're going to see guys get pushed back because offensive linemen are going to enter the top 15 most likely, and you're going to see some guys drop. And I didn't even name any receivers, CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy. These guys are all, somebody's going to not get picked in the top 15. And that means someone's going to get pushed back to 25. Someone's going to get pushed back to 30. The teams that are really going to benefit are the playoff teams. Those are the teams that are really going to benefit here, because they're the ones that are sitting at the back end of the first round just saying, hey, look, whatever you guys leave for leftovers, we greatly appreciate it. And usually it's just table scraps. Everybody eats the 4-course meal. They trim off the fat, all the things they don't want. And then usually the back end of the first round, they get table scraps. This year, they're going to be eating good at the back end of the first round, I think. Because there's so many talented guys, and there are going to be so many quarterbacks. Remember last year, wasn't a ton of quarterbacks that went in the first round. Wasn't a bunch of them. Only 3 went in the first round last year. All right? Murray went in the first round, Jones went in the first round, and Dwayne Haskins went in the first round. And it wasn't a lot of movement for those guys. Wasn't nobody dying to go up and get anybody, so wasn't a lot of moving around for these quarterbacks last year. The offensive tackle position wasn't all that great last year. It's much better this year. So guys are going to get moved up. It's going to change how this draft kind of operates. JP says, keep an eye on Rashard Lawrence from my LSU Tigers. Dude is a game changer. Could be a great D tackle at the pro level. He was great in the national title game last month. I like him a lot. His running form is horrendous, though, but he is a good football player. I will agree with you on that. Mr. TNA 2005 says, just got here, so I don't know what you thought about my man, but Simmons is my favorite player in the draft. What do you think of him? I just talked about him not too long ago. Ali Side says, hey, no pods this week? No pods, man. Been extremely busy. DT21 says, why is Haskins getting caught up in these smoke screens and being sent out by the Skins? Someone close to him should tell him how the draft game works. It is what it is, man. Ali Side says, Simmons just secured the bag with that 4.39. Man is a freak. Highly doubt he'll get past the Giants at 5. The Giants are at 4. And you're right. If I'm the Giants, I think that's the case. But the Giants have a decision to make, and Dave Gettleman has always been one to build in the trenches and then fan out. So whether it's defensive line or offensive line, he's always been one to err on the side of getting the big nasty first. So it wouldn't shock me if he went Mekhi Becton. And you can't really go wrong. I'm just saying you can find another offensive tackle. What you can't find is another Isaiah Simmons. That's all I'm saying. And I get it. You can't find another Mekhi Becton either. Those don't grow on trees. But I think you can find another serviceable tackle. What you can't find is another Isaiah Simmons. You can't find another 6'4", 238-pound Swiss Army knife that runs a 4.39. You just can't. Anu Naga says, Simmons will help any team. # go Tigers. JP says, I think Patrick Queen could end up either a Raven or a Titan. It could happen. I don't think both of those linebackers will make it back to where the Ravens are in the first round, but I think one of them will ultimately make their way back there, and it might be a guy like Patrick Queen. Dantrell Jackson says, okay. Let's see. Got a super chat. I'm about to take that one. JP says, Giants could go O-line and provide protection for Daniel Jones, but Simmons is too good for them to pass up. He also could either be the Panthers at 7 or the Jags at 9. Let me grab this super chat from my man Vincent Cole. Thank you so much for the super chat, Vincent Cole. Greatly appreciate the super chat, Vincent Cole. Vincent writes, do you think DJ is a GM candidate soon like Mike Mayock? I wouldn't be shocked. You heard, I don't know if you caught this during the telecast. I don't know if you watched it or not, but I heard Rich Eisen kind of slip up. I don't think DJ really wanted him to say this. You know, DJ, and you know, guys just being modest, kind of brushed this stuff off. But he said that the new Jets GM, y'all know who I'm talking, Joe Douglas, that they got from Philadelphia. He said, Joe Douglas almost snatched you away from me this offseason. And DJ kind of shut it down quick because that DJ said, yeah, that was my boy. We came up with the Ravens together. And so he knows Joe Douglas pretty well. And Joe, it sounded like Joe wanted him a part of his squad. And, you know, look, DJ's got a great job. DJ's got a phenomenal job. Same thing with Michael Mayock. You know, phenomenal job. You're on TV. And really, all you have is about a good 4-month period where you are going at it nonstop. You're on television all the time. You're at these pro days and, you know, they use you, path to the draft, all that stuff. Like, it's a great job. 4 months out of the year, you're hitting it hard. And then the other 8 months, you do some work for them and, you know, you're here, you're there, but you're not really, you know, in the limelight on NFL Network the other 8 months out of the year. But those 4 months, you're the big money guy. And it's a great job. You get to spend a ton of time with your family because when you become a GM, when you're a scout, you don't get to spend a ton of time with your family. It's a much different game when you're in it. And so it take a lot to pry a guy like DJ away from NFL Network. But I think it would take a GM position to do that. Like Mike Mayock, it'll take a GM job to do that. And so I don't see DJ going anywhere for the time being. But if a team came at him with an opportunity to be their general manager, I think he would take it because at the end of the day, when you're a scout, your ultimate goal is to become a GM. That's the ultimate goal when you become a scout. And so I think if DJ had the opportunity, yeah, he'd want to become a GM. So I could see that happening for sure. For sure. Anyway, no problem, Caveman Tarot. Let's see. Let's see. JP says, how do you see Jack Del Rio rotating guys on our defensive line once we get Chase Young? Do they put Kerrigan on third downs? Could they move Sweat around edge or linebacker? I think this is how I would like to see it. I'd like to see Kerrigan rush on the inside. Take your best interior pass rusher, whether that is Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. I think it's Matt Ioannidis, but I'd take my best interior pass rusher. Kerrigan would be my other interior pass rusher, and then I'd have Sweat and I'd have Chase Young, and that'd be my, you know how like the Seahawks had the NASCAR package back in the day where they just put 4 fast guys on the field and rush the quarterback. That's how I would do it, you know, but we'll see what they decide to do. I don't know how you use Kerrigan, because Kerrigan's not going to be better than Sweat or Chase Young. So you don't take either one of those guys out to put him in on third downs. So I'm thinking you kick him inside, to be honest with you. So we'll see what happens. Raekwon Bell says, how do you feel about Raekwon Davis out of Alabama? Man, he's a humongous mountain of a man. I remember watching him early on in his Alabama career thinking this guy's a stud. I didn't feel like his play was as great of late, but the guy has value, man. He's so big. He's so physical. Like I said, he's a guy that you want. I think he's a guy that you want two-gapping. You know, he's the quintessential two-gapping 5-tech to me. You know, and you may even be able to stick him inside as a nose. I got to watch more of him to see how he holds up at the point of attack. Can he take on double teams? But at 6'6", 300, and what is he, 311, I think he was? Or did he run a 5'1"? At 6'6", 311 pounds, I had it right. I just think that guy's he's a tree trunk, man. He's a hard guy to move. So anyway, that's going to do it for me. Got all the comments out of the way. Thank you guys for joining me for day 3 coverage of the 2020 NFL Scouting Combine. I was really impressed with what we saw today, more so than I thought I was going to be when I went into the day. So be intriguing to see what happens with these guys and their stock after what they were able to put forth on the field in day number 3. And so now there's only one day left. Defensive backs, and just a little something to look forward to tomorrow. You got safeties. I'm really looking forward to Ashton Davis, the safety out of Cal. He's a guy that is supposed to run really well, and he's a physical football player. Looking forward to seeing him. And I think that I talked about another guy that I really wanted to see, the small school safety out of Lenore Ryan. Really hoping that he does some damage at the combine tomorrow and help elevate his draft stock. And then you're going to see the corners, Jeff Okudah and all those guys, Henderson, CJ Henderson out of Florida, and the rest of those guys at the cornerback position. It should be a ton of fun tomorrow. Much like the wide receiver position, you're going to see a bunch of athletes tomorrow. Let's see how fast these guys run, because they're not getting any slower at the receiver position, as we saw on day number 1. They're not getting any slower at the receiver position. So these guys better be able to run and move and change direction. And so we'll see what those guys are able to do tomorrow. So until then, I'm your man Louis T signing off. Got another super chat. I'll take care of that before we get out of here. But if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. I thank you guys for joining me. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louis T Network. Curtis Owens says, Curtis Owens, first of all, thank you for the super chat, my man. Greatly appreciated, man. Thank you so much for your super chat on the way out the door. He says, keep it up, my dude. Love the show. Absolutely. You keep it up. You continue to support the Louis T Network. I thank you so much for all that you do in your contributions, whether it's just viewership or the contribution of a super chat. Thank you so much, Curtis Owens. And so with that being said, I'm going to glide to the side. I will see you guys tomorrow to wrap up my 2020 NFL Scouting Combine coverage. The defensive backs will wrap up the combine, and then we will hit the ground running. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your night. Have a good one. Louis T Network.